Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and welcome. I'm Basis Soccer, and I'm here with the Great Defender one more time. The last time we met, we delved into who is the Great Defender and why he's championing the cause of the plight of Jamaica. Today, we're going to explore some of the issues that Jamaica is facing. It's good to see you again, Defender. How are you?
Thank you, Basasak. I'm fine, thank you. And it's good to be here with you once more.
So, you know, we got some really good feedback on our last session, and I think it's only right that we follow up and start delving into some of the issues that we kind of skirted over. We just kind of scratched the surface of the last time we were together. So today I want to, just try to keep this to maybe three specific issues. And we're going to be looking at health, the wealth, finances of Jamaica, and crime. And I think those three subjects are really quite poignant and quite, heavy on the minds of Jamaicans as we know them today. So, without further ado, we're looking at health. What are some of the more pressing issues regarding health that, from your point of view, and what strategies do you feel could be used to try and address them?
Well, we have an issue with the quality of our hospitals. We have an issue with the amount of medical staff. We are badly understaffed. Jamaica currently has about 2,500 nurses, if my memory serves me correct. We probably have about 400 doctors, which is a low healthcare staff compared to the amount of people that needs care. Our people are dying from stroke. Stroke is the main cause of death in Jamaica. And it tells us that these things that are avoidable are happening because of negligence. We have hospitals closing down. Instead of we getting more hospitals, we are losing from the few hospitals we have already. And so these are major concerns. And the budget that is set aside for healthcare is too small. We have like 6% of the budget goes towards healthcare. And we have a massive amount of people to care for. One in every 8 Jamaicans will be diabetic. And therefore, we have to have a better healthcare system. Dialysis machines are not enough across the island. And you can get those relatively cheap in the United States, even refurbished ones or used ones, you can get them. You can get dialysis machines for 10,000 and under in US dollars, some as low as 199. So, these are areas that the government must look into in order to improve our healthcare. We can't be losing hospitals when we are having increased health problems in the country.
Okay, you were talking about stroke. I mean, do you have any numbers as far as stroke is concerned? I'm just thinking, when we talk about health, stroke, usually we're looking at high blood pressure, we're looking at poor diet, all of these kind of things. So, I mean, how prevalent is stroke at the moment?
Well, stroke is the main cause of death in Jamaica right now. We are losing round about close to 3,000 people per year from stroke. More than crime, more than any other sickness. They're dying of stroke, just stroke, simple stroke. And these things can be avoided. We can lower the rate at which our people are dying from stroke. We have a 33% of the women probably are slightly overweight, and we need healthier methods of eating. The country has got to come full circle with the fact that our health care system is a mess and it has to be revamped, rebuilt. It has to be rebuilt from scratch. We cannot continue with the nonsense that we have calling healthcare. How can you have 5% of your budget towards healthcare, so low amount of nurses, doctors? We need more of those. But what we would like to see is that we have more of our doctors trained locally, trained, more Jamaican doctors rather than foreign doctors. We need a lot more of our people to become medical doctors, and the government must create the opportunity for our people to be trained as medical doctors so our people can get better care.
Hmm. I see. So, can you give me an example of what the average parish would have as far as health care facilities are concerned? What's the sort of average? What facilities would they normally have?
Well, altogether, Jamaica have about maybe 30 to 40 hospitals and clinics in all 14 parishes, which is not good enough. It's not even nearly good. Uh, when you check the ratio of medical doctors to the population, you have about 0.455 doctor per thousand people in Jamaica. So we don't even have a half of a doctor to 1,000 people in the country. So we're woefully short. If you look at the statistics, it tells you that we are falling woefully short in the healthcare sector.
So the average doctor is going to take you 8 years to train, and we've got a problem now. If you were looking at a short-term fix for a better word, or a short-term strategy, what would you be looking at as far as, getting the healthcare to be better than it is? I mean, we can't wait 8 years to get a batch of doctors through. So, what could we do short term?
Well, for short term, we have to start focus on teaching our people to eat healthy. And therefore, we have to, short term, we can start producing organic food, more organic food, naturally grown food that our people can be healthier. That way, that will prevent them from getting sick, rather. In the meantime, we can proceed with training some of our locals while we struggle with the influx of overseas doctors coming in. But if we get our population to eat healthier, then we will avoid a lot of sickness. And therefore, this in the short term will help a lot. I'm sure there have to be programs, educational programs, to teach our people to eat well. And that way, they will cut down the amount of high blood pressure, diabetes, whatever it is that cause them to be sick, and prevent them from getting stroke in the meantime, until we create that robust program where we can start training our locals. We have to train our people because 8 years will come and we still have to cater for 8 years. If 8 years from now we are having the same conversation, it means that no progress was made. And so we are seeing less doctors. We are seeing a migration of the nurses from Jamaica. There's not enough incentive to keep them in Jamaica. So short term, we have to go for healthy eating. And that is why I've advocated before that my goal for Jamaica would would be trying to see Jamaica becoming the health basket of the Western Hemisphere. We can do that. We can live longer and stronger if we start eating right. But there has to be a program in place to educate people, to remind them that healthy eating is necessary to stay well until we fix the healthcare system.
Right. I hear you. Education isn't just about academia. Sometimes it is just about your health and making better choices. Um, it would be interesting to know what the comparison to the life expectancy is at the moment to what it was 30, 40 years ago, even 50 years ago. Because I can only imagine that with the influx of fast foods and the ease and convenience of takeaways and things like that, I can only imagine that it's made a huge impact on the eating habits of Jamaicans. um, I can imagine the elderly um, tend to eat relatively well because they don't eat too many of the processed foods, etc. But as generations change, the eating habits change. So I think you're right with education. I think that's really important. But I think this is a subject that I think we could look at in depth as far as the comparisons are concerned, where things are breaking down, um, and where we can look at um, rejuvenating the healthcare. Um, you spoke a little bit about the funding and that only 5% of the funding goes to healthcare. There's no kind of um, system in place like they have in the UK, where they have the National Health Service, where healthcare is free for very young, very old, and unemployed. What provisions are there in Jamaica for healthcare for the people who are not earning, who are on low budgets?
Well, the people pretty much have to fund their own health care. They have to pay out of pocket for almost everything. There are one or two experiments by the government with a few elders, a handful of older folks. They might get medication at a reduced rate or so forth. There are little experiments here and there, but nothing to shout about. Uh, the economic base is not there for the people to be paying these high costs for healthcare, and because of that, many of them are dying. Life expectancy rate in Jamaica stands currently at about 74.5 years, say 75 years, which is not bad. It means we have the ability to live long. But my concern is that we would like our elders to stick around a little longer. So if we are promoting healthy eating and exercise, we can move that life expectancy rate from 74.5 years to about 85 years. It can be done because we see samples of people way back then living very long, and they didn't have the kind of medical care, any kind of medical care, as a matter of fact, and they lived long because they were eating healthy. And so we have to learn from that, and we have to promote that and educate our people on healthy eating. Because as it is right now, the majority of our population are not gainfully employed to stand up to the cost of healthcare. And so far, you have to have family members that are chipping in here and there to take care of one person. The family members and friends become the insurance. They become the insurance. And what if people are from a family that does not have the capacity or the depth to help? Then that person suffers and dies. And so we have to value every life. And so it is incumbent upon government to create the systems that the people can get care. Even if the system of healthcare is mediocre, the opportunity for them to stay alive can be greatly increased.
I almost heard you say, and this is me paraphrasing, that, you know, in generations gone by, there wasn't so much of a need for healthcare because the eating habits and the choices were very different. So now what you're saying to me is that there is a greater burden on the healthcare and it just hasn't moved forward with the generations. Is am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, yes. I mean, if we don't really have a much greater system of healthcare today than we had in the 60s when you check it out, because all the hospitals we have now were hospitals, most of them were from way back. So we have, but people never used to gravitate to those places because they were eating healthy and they were using natural remedies to stay alive and to heal themselves. And now that people are more aware that they can go to the medical doctor, they can go to the hospitals, and things have changed. You know, back then it wasn't as violent as now. There wasn't as much importation as now. So people get sick because of a lot of the imported food. They, processed food. These things are not very healthy for our population, and it's creating too much diabetes in the country. And so we have to produce the kind of food that we can avoid the doctor at all costs because they're just too expensive. Medical care is just too expensive. But yes, but then there are people that used to live very long and they were very strong and they could thread a needle at 85 and 90. So we would like our people to be around so that they can impart their wisdom and knowledge to the younger generations. The longer they are, the better it is for the country, the longer they live. Because if you have someone at 85 sharing their knowledge and experience with the youngsters, as opposed to dying at 75, that's 10 years more of knowledge that our youngsters, our future generation can gain, which they're going to need to take through life and to prepare the generation coming after. So we have to think 50 years, 100 years ahead to regain our country and to make our country a better place. It's not just immediate remedies. We have to do what we can do now, which the first thing, as I've said, we begin to eat healthier. That way we don't have to worry too much about medical care. But then as time goes by, we are training our locals to become medical professionals and to make our country a healthier place eventually going forward.
So let's look at sourcing for the finances for these things. The education, the training, the hospitals, the local clinics, the machines, the equipment, etc. Let's have a look at the funding and the finances. I mean, how obviously there's more in the kitty that can be used and isn't at this present moment in time. Are there any other sources of financing, or is it just the case of how the financing is being used at the moment could be juggled a little better?
Well, things can shift around some of the funds from other parts of the economy. I mean, we have, for example, crime. A huge chunk of money goes into fighting crime, and they're not getting much results over in that side. So why not shift a third of the budget from fighting crime, and put it towards healthcare? Because I would rather have my people live longer And if the people are serious about crime, we're on healthcare, but one thing leads to another. So I'm just drawing parallels here. If we can shift over some of that budget into healthcare, then we would have a lot of people living longer and stronger. Um, you're going to employ more people because you have more funding. You're going to train more people because you have more funding. And that is why it is very important that we look into saving lives. If you look at, say, France, they about 84% of the health costs in France is covered by some insurance of some sorts. The people get a lot of help, and they can stay healthy. They can live longer, and there's always improving their infrastructure to make sure their nation is a healthy nation. One of the best healthcare systems in the world. We have to emulate the people that the thing works for. We got to look at a formula and adopt a formula to work for our people. We are no less important than anybody else. But literally right now, because everything in the health sector is underfunded, you don't have good hospital beds. You don't get good treatment because the nursing staff, they're not highly motivated. You're not getting, you can't even make a proper appointment. You have tents being used now in modern Jamaica, parts of hospital being tents. So they have to shift some budget around, shift around some money from fighting crime, because they're not getting anywhere with fighting crime. So unless they approach it differently, you can use half the money you're using crime fighting right now and get a better result. It's just because they don't have the tactics and they have not studied how to really solve those problems. But we're on healthcare. I would like to see we keep our seniors living longer, we keep our young population healthier, and educate our nation on healthcare. It can be done. We can shift around some fundings. The money is there. It can be done.
So, talking more about money at the moment, there's a lot of money in the criminal world. Um, and you made mention the last time we came together that, that the criminals were looking after the people better than the government were. So there's a lot of money floating around in the criminal world. So is there any way we can channel that out? I mean, if we're finding they're getting hold of these criminals, putting them in jail and things like that, is there a way that we can get hold of some of the money that they're using and use that? I mean, am I just clutching at straws there?
That's an amazing question. I have always advocated that the spoils of war belong to the victor. And when you hold these people with all this money committing crime, I am, of course, a strong advocate of using it in health sector and in education. Because what do they do with the money anyway? They take it. You don't hear nothing about it anymore. I'm sure they use it. They steal it. They steal it because you can't walk anywhere and see all the millions they've been seizing from criminals. They don't have it anywhere. That's shared up for the bigwigs. So why not put it into healthcare? Why not put it into education? We can do that. That's a marvelous idea. I've always advocated that the spoils of war belongs to the victor. And I believe that those money that they're taking from criminals, from drug dealers, they can use it in healthcare to make our country a healthier place.
Also, in our last conversation, you made mention of a sub-currency. You made mention of printing currency in the country. Could you just talk a little bit more about that?
Well, need to print local currency as a secondary currency to jumpstart our economy, get just enough to get the different industries and services up and running. Right now, agriculture is way down. So if we have a sub currency, that would jumpstart a lot of our people into different projects that will eventually generate foreign exchange. Not too much that we're going to suffer from hyperinflation now, because we don't want what happened in, say, Zimbabwe, happen in Jamaica, because they were printing and not managing and directing it in the proper areas. But we have to identify where our shortcomings are and what we can get local goods locally. So we can use that sub currency to purchase goods and services locally to upstart these stifled industries and these stifled forms of services and get them up and running, because we have to do something like that to save the country. Or else we're going to be always borrowing a lot of billions of dollars, and we're borrowing right now about 10 billion United States dollars annually. And, we are exporting probably about $1 billion worth of goods. So the difference there is great. You are borrowing 10 times more than you are really selling. And then you have about, you are importing about $5.5 to $6 billion worth of goods. So that doesn't leave a lot of foreign exchange to do all the things that we need to do. So why not make our own sub currency? Now, the experts will tell you that won't work. We're going to have hyperinflation, and they're going to beat it down because it won't work for the people that are already okay. But if you have the people in the countryside where that is the place is underdeveloped, the land is just being wasted. If you have a currency that you can use to make these people go to work, to put them to work and come up with the different programs that they can produce, it's worth it. It's worth it. Because they will be producing that they are now bringing in the primary currency. And then they will be bringing in foreign exchange. We are a fertile country. Like I said, if we become the health basket of the Western Hemisphere, we are getting about 7% of our export as agriculture. That is meager. With all the lands being wasted around Jamaica, we cannot produce enough food. We can't feed ourselves. We should be able to feed the entire Caribbean region. We have the land. The land is fertile. There are just not programs in place. So the sub-currency would come in very handy. It would come in very handy. It will help. It will help.
Okay, thank you. So we've looked at health. We've looked at the finances. So we did touch a little bit on crime. I mean, let's go over to the crime scene. That is Jamaica at the moment. I mean, it's bad. There's when folks like myself are hearing the many stories that are coming out, and now is the time when you're seeing footage, recorded footage of carnage. It really brings it home to you how a country so small has such really poor crime. I mean, it's heartbreaking to see when people are leaving their countries and they're going home, for a better word, and they can't stay there because they're being robbed, some are being killed, there are shallow graves all over the place. People are being found, killed instead of being able to go back to their loved ones in whatever country they're in. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, Just give us an idea of, I've just touched on one or two, but what else is going on out there at the moment? Why is all this happening?
Well, there are several factors that are causing the crime problem in the country. And one of the first thing like I've said before, and I've always said it, our youngsters are ill prepared to face the challenges of the global village. So they are not geared. They somehow seem they don't want to be good fathers. They don't want to be responsible for anything, their own well being. So they just get up and literally throw their lives away. They just get up and say they're going to be criminals. There's nothing to do, really, because there's nothing in place for them. If you check the ghettos of Jamaica, 30 years ago, you can walk through any of those ghettos today and find your way around easily. There's not been much improvement. There are no programs in place to keep young men active and distracted from crime. You have to have activities for youth. When I say activities, I'm not just talking about sport. There have to be incentives for them to want to work. If you look at the minimum wage in Jamaica today, it hovers about 9,000 Jamaican dollars a week. When people have to pay bus fare, get lunch, buy their cooking gas, pay their electricity bill, their water bills. And if you're the sole provider in a household and you're making that, and you have three boys growing up, and many nights they have to go to their beds hungry. By the time they get to 14, 15, that they think they can run and walk strong and fast, what do you think they're going to do? They're tired of being hungry. So they're going to just go out there and do desperate things because they're tired of seeing mommy alone struggling to feed them. And when they see someone in a 9 to 5, and I've said it before, it is sad that in Jamaica, a 9 to 5 job is almost the equivalent of voluntary starvation. So it's like a man volunteered to starve, so he goes to work 9 to 5. He can't save much. He can't do much. It's a struggle. Life is too much of a struggle. That is why you have a high crime rate. The youths are hungry now. They are hungry right now. There's no food stamp program in place to make sure they are fed properly every night until they can figure their way out. There has to be robust programs in place to counteract crime. There's a lot of things that have to be done. Some people are hungry. Some people are just bandwagonists. Some people just don't want to be productive. And so they follow their friends and they just peer pressure. A lot of it is peer pressure. Another thing that I think contributes a lot to the crime in Jamaica, it encourages it, is the poor quality of the dancehall music recently. I think when you listen to it, you realize it is literally giving the youngsters instructions how to be violent. And that kind of culture has to change. So the broad thing we have to do to solve crime is to reculture our people. That's one of the areas. They have to be recultured. They have to now be taught a different form of literature than that of violence. There must be standards set. The Ministry of Culture and whatever, Ministry of National Security, they have to come together and design methods of creating that propaganda that encourages the youths away from crime. The dancehall artists are putting their thing out there to make their money, but they are not aware of the negative impact they're having on their fellow youths. It's having a negative impact. And I tell you, right now, in another 5 years, I don't know if people will want to hear what is coming out of the dancehall in Jamaica. I think that music now has become trapped in Jamaica. It is trapped there. The people are not craving for it anymore on the global stage. We are now seeing everybody diverting towards Afrobeat. So quality is very important. And so we all have a role to play to stop crime in our country. The people with the influence over the youths have got to exert their influence properly. The people, the government has got to put the programs in place so that the youths are fed consistently until you train them in the different areas. We have a population of 2.8 million people probably living in Jamaica now. Overseas, there are about 650,000 Jamaicans in the United States alone. People are born in Jamaica. And imagine if you subtract 650,000 and still have 2.8 million, look at the percentage of our population that have chosen to migrate. And one of the main reasons people are leaving Jamaica now is because of the crime. You come from overseas and people are looking to rob you because you were coming from overseas. So the fact that people think that there's nothing else to do than to commit crime, it's dangerous. They have to be recultured. They have to be retrained. The military has to be put to work. The 6,000 soldiers we have sitting in our camp, we need 4,000 of them on the road to help to retrain the youngsters and to do a little attitude adjustment here and there to straighten them out. Retraining is very important, and that is why I've always said we have to put interim centers all over the island and use our military as models to the young men in the society. If the young men see when the soldiers are coming through, the bad men are running away, they will realize that these guys are not so bad. They run away from the good guys. And so they will want to be the good guys. The mentorship is poor in Jamaica right now. We need our men to stand up and mentor the young men. They are not standing up. They are following the youngsters into crime. And it is sad. But these are just some of the things that are causing crime. I could go on and on, but I'll pause there for now.
Thank you. I'll be honest with you. I agree with much of what you're saying there. I mean, it seems to be that a life of crime is more attractive than a 9 to 5, for instance. That going to school, working hard, doesn't have the rewards. I know that each generation comes with its own little foibles, and I know that across the globe, there are generations of people who are almost entitled and don't see why they should have to work so hard. And, when I was growing up, we were always taught work smart, not hard. But in order to work smart, you needed to be educated. And once you were educated, you needed not only to, have the knowledge, but to be able to put that knowledge into action. Because they always say knowledge is power, but it's actually the application of that knowledge that's power. And so what seems to be happening at the moment is that there isn't an awful lot of knowledge being gained. And so if the knowledge is not being gained, then the application is not going to be there. And if you cannot get the knowledge, you can't apply it, then obviously you can't get the rewards of it, which is where we seem to be at the moment with these children who don't seem to have much that they, to live for, basically. We've seen it around the world. We've seen it in countries where the murder rate is going up amongst younger folks, where they're killing each other off. It just kind of puts me in mind of Stanley Williams back when they were looking at the gangs with the Crips and the Bloods and everything. And there's a particular line from the autobiography where this gang member is saying that when he looked in the mirror, he needed to obliterate what he was seeing, because what he saw was failure. And so he would recognize that in other people's faces. And these are the faces that look like his. So if he got rid of them, he wouldn't have to look at them. And so, I mean, that's me paraphrasing, I must say. But it seems to be that's what we're seeing. We're seeing our young people who are looking at obliterating their own culture because they're angry, because they don't see any value in it. The morals and the culture does not seem to be offering them anything that is worth living and walking upright. So yeah, I think you are very much right. There needs to be a reculture of the young people. There needs to be a reculture of our generation, because we are that generation now that are supposed to be imparting to the young people. We are that generation now. It's our parents. They're supposed to be sitting back and relaxing. They're way over that 74 mark now. Um, and so, yes, they will give, words of wisdom, but we're still strong enough to be able to say, well, look, if you do this, this is what you're going to get. But um, we're being killed off by our younger people. Our younger people are killing off our generation. Um, because have we failed them? I mean, have our generation failed the young people? Can we, do we have some responsibility for what's going on?
Well, yes, I think this generation have failed the youngsters. And that is exactly my point, because these youngsters, in any country rather, the youngsters have to be prepared to take over the reins of society. And in Jamaica, they are not adequately prepared. They are ill prepared to face the challenges of the global village. And I think they are seemingly frightened by the challenges that come. Uh, a guy comes up, he's 20, 21, he gets 2 or 3 baby mothers. He doesn't have a skill, he doesn't have a job, but he has 2 or 3 babies to feed. And there is this, whether it's a narrow sense of obligation, the slimmest sense of obligation he feels, he'll go out there and commit crime to feed them. That he cannot have a sustained method of bringing in income for them because he has been inadequately prepared to take on these challenges. Now, this is where preparation comes in. This generation has got to prepare the next generation properly. Parenting skills in Jamaica, the quality of parenting has fallen significantly. Our young ladies and young men must be taught how to be responsible parents. The vulgarity that has become a part of everyday life for many Jamaicans, we have got to find ways to stamp that out, because these things are not helping the future generation. When you listen to some of the men that are in shootouts with police, for example, some of them are in their 40s and 50s. Now, these are grandfathers. That should be telling the youngsters, this is not the way to go. And so we have to now embrace a future generation with some form of compassion, because they have to be taught love. They have to be taught how to love each other instead of killing each other. They have to be taught that everyone cannot have the same opinion. They have to be taught that if there are 5 brothers and 5 sisters, that they will not think the same. They will not eat the same amount of food or drink the same amount of water. They like different colors. Some like green, some like yellow, some like blue, some like black. People have different preferences. And these youngsters have to be taught that not because someone thinks different from you, it doesn't mean he's an enemy. They have to be taught that not because the guy comes from the bottom of the lane, he's not an enemy. He's is a part of the same Jamaica. And so patriotism is the doctrine that any government in power must be filtering it out there to the youngster. They have to reculture them. This is our duty, this generation. This is our last chance to save the next generation, because they're giving up, killing off each other, and it's not looking good. We are better than this, and this generation have got to accept it. And they have got to now come to terms and say, you know what? We cannot afford to lose our future generations. So we are going to have to step up to the plate, and we are going to have to start the job of reculturing them and make sure that they know that what they are doing is wrong and there are ways to do things better. We have to give them hope. And that is why it's important for change of leadership. It needs motivated leaders who can motivate and inspire the youngsters and let them see that life is worth living. You've got to share knowledge with them and let them know that not because you are not working now, it doesn't mean you have to steal. You will have your daily meal. That is why a secondary currency is very important, because they are not going to Miami to buy their dinner. They are buying it right there in Jamaica. So if you have a local currency that you're issuing on a card for them, that they can eat daily, at least they can eat properly and think, I don't have to steal because I'm eating. When they go out there and they join gangs, and the propaganda the gangsters are spread, they are getting to them faster than the government. The leadership is not reaching out to the youngsters. Leadership has pulled back and have put the dons, the middlemen, in their spot. What the young leaders are doing to influence the youngsters, it is the government that should be standing in that void and influencing the youngsters towards what is good. They are lazy, and that is why crime is so high in Jamaica. The governments have been lazy, and they have been not creative. They don't have ideas how to move the country forward. The country as a whole. One of the things you have to do is be able to bring your people together, to unite your people, to let your people know we are fighting for the same cause, and that cause is Jamaica. And even the criminal wants to enjoy Jamaica. So it doesn't make sense you destroy the very country that you ought to be enjoying. That is it. So it is time for new, fresh ideas in this country to move the country forward. It is time for people who are prepared to do the heavy lifting and to mold the youngsters in the right way. Use the military to reprimand, not to kill, but to reprimand them and to straighten them out. Parenting skills must be taught to the youngsters. They have to be taught how to be good parents. There have to be projects all over the country training these youngsters in areas. And if you have to handcuff them on a desk to teach him something, that's okay. You handcuff him, bring him in the classroom, teach him something, and release him after school. That's okay. He's learning something, and he will be thankful for it. We have to really put some muscle into saving this country.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know we have definitely gone over time this evening, but this conversation has been riveting. It's been, I think to some it's going to be somewhat of an eye opener. The problems and the issues are very deep, and I can understand why you are so passionate about trying to get Jamaica back on an even keel again. And I thank you. I thank you for taking the podium, for expressing yourself, for just bringing that word to the people, so that folks can hear. I'm not the only one thinking this way, and that others may think, well, I didn't think of it that way, or I wasn't thinking about it, or what can I do to help? And I think in future conversations that we have, then maybe we could be looking at things like, what can we do to help from our level, not necessarily in the political arena, but as a community. Great Defender, thank you very much for the time that you've taken this evening. Thank you for having me once again. I look forward to doing this again with you very much. And I think we could wrap this up right now, but thank you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much, Basisaka. Thanks for having me, and it's been a pleasure. Looking forward to talk to you soon. Thank you.